Lord Nariaki Saito, the Tiger, the self-proclaimed Shogun of the North. He thought himself a tenacious leader. After all, despite a great defeat at the Battle of Nagashino, he picked himself back up, building his clan from nothing and securing the futures of everyone under his leadership. To him, his exile to the north, to the island of Ezo, was not much an exile, as it was a retreat of rebirth, a wounded tiger taking the time to recover and come back stronger. And to his credit, he did just that. Considering all the losses he suffered and the adversities he overcame to build Clan Saito into what it was at the time of the game, his achievements are remarkable. Lord Saito's plan to take hold of Ezo, solidify his rule over the land and cut it off from the Shogunate of mainland Japan was on the path of success, that is until his failures as a leader came back to haunt and all he built was razed to the ground, all culminating in his death. Greetings explorers, welcome to Save Point Parables, the show that promises not to come after you or your family if you ever desert us. This is the parable of the false lord. As with most leaders, Lord Saito's failures can be seen in his dealings with those who trust him the most, even before the results fully manifest before his eyes. To that point, let's take a look at how he treated the members of the Yotei 6. Some of these are genuinely good qualities of leadership that are worthy of emulation. Again, that's why Saito was able to build up his clan successfully. But beneath the surface, when we see the kind of hold he has on them, we quickly realize that most of these seemingly good actions were born out of something more sinister. Firstly, the snake. Yukiharu was born with a lethal illness, so lethal in fact that he was not expected to live beyond infancy. But fortune, if you could even call it that, smiled upon him and he lived well into adulthood. But his life, from what I see, was not this great miracle. Sure, he survived well past his life expectancy, but the life he lived was not free of his illness and he had to live with this terrible pain all his life. There's no record of what this illness was exactly, but from the details we get, the fact that he was born with it, the short life expectancy, and the immense pain, I am inclined to guess sickle cell. This is a condition I know all too well. However, there were no records of this condition at that time period. Smallpox is also out of the question as there were no physical marks on his body. It most probably is beriberi. Whatever it is, it was a nightmare to live with. This begs the question, how does a sickly boy come into the ranks of the Yotei 6? The highest among the most feared clan in the land of Ezo? He was sold by his family to Clan Saito to work on the fields, due to him being a liability and not being able to contribute anything useful to them. It was there that he caught Saito's attention with a skill that he developed to help him survive and get the things he wanted. His silver tongue. Knowing what to say and when to say them, being able to convince people of anything he wanted. This was his in. Saito saw how valuable this skill was, especially in recruitment, which would become his primary role for Lord Saito. Now this was a valuable leadership skill on Saito's part. In a world where strength and battle prowess are valued the most, he was able to look beyond that and see other skills that were valuable as well, even in an outcast like Yukiharu, whom everybody saw as useless. Beyond this, I did not find any more details of Saito's dealings with the snake. He was the first of the Yotei 6 that Atsu confronted and killed upon her return to Ezo. Our time with him was short, but the impact would resonate throughout the game. It was in fact in this fight that Atsu's legend as an Onryo was born, after she was stabbed by the snake and seemingly died, but got up shortly after and went on her way. What we see from Saito so far looking at the snake are wisdom, insights, and compassion, albeit strictly conditional, all traits of a good leader. And now we move up north from Yotei grasslands into Ishikari Plain, where we encounter the second Yotei 6 member, the Oni. I like to call the members of the Yotei 6 Saito's generals because each of them had a territory they watched over and were his point men in leading his army. But the Oni is different because he actually used to be a general. Lord Hyozo, the famed general who led charges to many battles and emerged victorious. The once great man is now relegated to overseeing the construction of a castle for his lord Saito. To examine his fall, we will have to take a look behind his mask, where he hides his shame. Among the Oni raiders, whispers spread of how a little girl cut the Oni from eye to mouth, leaving him blind in one eye and drooling while he ate. This little girl was Atsu. On the night of the burning tree, in a bid to save her brother, Atsu struck the Oni with a katana and marked him for life. To be wounded by a woman, let alone a child, was a mark of great shame for any samurai. But for the Oni, that was not the birth of the shame he now lives with. No, that happened in the Battle of Nagashino, where Saito and Hyozo, fighting for Clan Takeda, were brutally defeated. Not only did the clan lose everything in that battle, Lord Hyozo suffered a blow that struck deeper than any physical wound. He was shot by a peasant, brought down by a nobody, and was left crushed under the weight of his own horse. He survived this, of course, but his reputation did not. Like the rest of the Yotei 6, his exile to the north with Saito was a chance at rebirth, to rebuild himself while helping to build a clan that will rival the Shogunate. So when he was wounded by Atsu, that was not the origin of the shame he carries, that was a renewal and an increase to it. The night of the burning tree was also where I noticed Saito's great leadership failing when it comes to the Oni. Actually, it was that night for most of them, because the entire narrative of the game hinges on that night. What stood out most was that for all of Saito's talk about making an example and the fact that he pinned the disaster his clan faced on Master Kengo, which included the deaths of his wife and daughter. On that night, Atsu's mother was really the only one to die by Saito's hands. He relegated the others to the rest of the Yotei 6, and Atsu specifically he left to the Oni, an act that the Oni was duty-bound to execute, even if he was not in agreement with it.
Do you think I enjoy setting fire to children? I am a general, a war hero. I should be on a battlefield, not repairing this rotting and molding castle for someone else. But I must do as my lord commands.
Like in everything that Saito does, he leaves himself a way out. Internally, he knew that slaughtering an entire family, including the children, for petty revenge was wrong. But he hid behind the idea of punishing deserters to justify this atrocity. And when the time came to do the deed, he has his subjects execute them, leaving his hands clean and his conscience unburdened, or so he thought. And all this to the detriment of the morals of his subjects. We all saw how relieved Saito was when he found out that Atsu did not actually die on that night, because that was one less child dead by his hands. The Oni was duty-bound to carry out his lord's orders, knowing fully well that the punishment for disobedience would be severe, as we clearly saw with the Kitsune's disobedience, which we'll be looking at next. Making your subjects do things you cannot bring yourself to do is selfish leadership. The Kitsune. Lady Oyuki is my favorite character in the game. I've actually made a full-length video on her journey in the game. You can watch it after this one. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I loved making it. Oyuki's family served under Lord Saito till the Battle of Nagashino, where they were all but completely wiped out. Oyuki then followed Saito up north, where she donned the title and the mask of the Kitsune. Behind this mask, she trained an army of shinobi for her lord Saito, remaining a faithful follower and believing that everything Saito does is absolutely necessary for the building of his clan. That delusion broke on the night of the burning tree. The way Saito handled Kengo's betrayal was the turning point for her. Was it really necessary to kill his children too? Was Saito justified in blaming Kengo for the hard times his clan went through during the famine? All Kengo did was leave the clan. Why was it necessary to kill deserters, as they were called, and their families too? She could see that it was more than just making an example. This was unwarranted revenge disguised as punishment, even if it was the tradition back then. We know that Saito had moved away from the traditional ways of the samurai, doing things his own way rather than sticking to their rigid code. It was not the law for him to punish Kengo, his old best friend, in this way. So the Kitsune, when it came time for her to aid Saito in the murder of Kengo's children, she just couldn't do it.
Bring her to me.
Run.
Setting Natsu free was a defiance Saito could not let go unpunished. Again, to make an example and to keep up appearances. He wouldn't want to let the other Yotei 6 members think they could get away with disobeying a direct order. And yet again, the punishment was cruel and deeply personal. The Kitsune's biggest secret was that she was a woman. Saito was the only other person that knew this. And if it ever came out that a woman stood shoulder to shoulder with the highest ranking members of Clan Saito and has her own command, the consequence for her would have been dire. So, what punishment did Saito deem fitting for her defiance? Branding her skin with red-hot metal right there in front of the other Yotei 6 members, forcing her to swallow the pain and not being able to scream. He knew her secrets. He was the one who accepted her as one of them and gave her her command. Now, here he is, using that secret against her, a secret that was probably the greatest symbol of Oyuki's trust and loyalty to him. He used it to harm her. People on the outside saw this as just punishment for wrongdoing, but to Oyuki, it was not just an act of cruelty, but of betrayal as well. In those times, stories of samurai betraying their lords were common, but no one talked of lords betraying their subjects. Loyalty goes both ways, and a leader who betrays the trust of those under him is no leader at all. The Spider and the Dragon. Where the other members of the Yotei 6 were duty and honor bound to serve their lord Saito, Sakichi and Ukichi were there primarily due to something stronger. They were Saito's own sons. Laying siege upon Oshima Coast with clinical brutality, bearing weapons that breathe fire and spit metal, guns, the very instruments that caused Saito's great defeat in the Battle of Nagashino. These two were feared across the land. But between them and their father, there was a tension, a great strain in their relationship caused in the most part by Saito, a strain that would inevitably destroy their family. The older son, Sakichi, the dragon, wanted nothing more than to please his father and do right by him as a warrior and as a subject. But the younger, Ukichi, the spider, had no such aspirations. Their relationship with their father was a tangled mess of expectations, envy, and bitter reality. For the dragon looked at the spider not caring about their father's approval as freedom and wanted that. The spider looked at the attention that the dragon was getting from their father and wanted that as well. Both craved what any son would want from their father, unconditional love, and neither of them got it. Saito always looked upon the dragon more favorably than the spider, but the dragon had to work overtime for that.
You are my sons, the dragon and the spider. Your actions, or in this case inaction, reflects upon me.
Any mistakes that the sons made would incur harsh rebukes and threats of disownment and most probably bodily harm. And this isn't mere speculation on my part.
The night of the burning tree wasn't war. It was a massacre.
I wasn't given a choice. That night, if my brother and I didn't shoot you, our father would have done worse to us.
I think the spider was speaking from past occurrences here. So the dragon, who worked hard for his father's approval, could lose it all in one mistake. This meant that he was under the heavy and constant burden to deliver on his duties, knowing that any failure could lead to a casting out. And the spider, who always wanted a different life as a performer, had this life forced upon him by his father, and still nothing he did was ever enough. His mistakes brought more repercussions than his successes brought favor. All of this, coupled with the loss of their mother and baby sister, painted a pitiful existence for these two. And the spider had his own thoughts on who was destroying their family.
You destroyed our family.
That's my father's way.
So, even in his own home, with his own sons, Saito could not keep things together. While everything seemed to be going well from the outside, looking into the Yotei 6, Saito's lack of accountability and cruelty disguised as guidance made sure that his clan would never see the glory they've been working hard towards.
I tried, father.
You failed. Like you fail at everything.
I'll avenge him, I swear. I'll find the Ondio.
She would kill you where you stand. Which is all you deserve. Go. Lay your brother to rest. Do that much for him. Then drink yourself to death for all I care.
It's arguable that Clan Saito would have still fallen when the Shogunate's reach expanded to Ezo. But then again, Saito had come a long way from the Battle of Nagashino. He had departed from the rigid samurai code since then, equipping his army with firearms, openly recruiting women into his army as marksmen, building an army of shinobi who favor warfare in the shadows. These are far removed from the traditional way of the samurai. Something interesting is that Saito is the embodiment of what the Shogunate feared Jin Sakai was in the first Ghost game. Jin discarded the samurai code and picked up creative approaches to combat and became the father of the shinobi. Saito and Jin, the way I see it, are opposite sides of the same coin. Jin forsook the samurai code because he found it devoid of compassion and it withheld him from protecting the people he was sworn to protect. Saito forsook the samurai code because it would keep him from achieving his personal goals. The code, though flawed, was meant to keep humans from descending into savagery in warfare and community. Saito abandoned the code and became exactly that. A lot could be said about the failings of the lordship model as leaders in that time, but there are really a few things I want to focus on about Saito's failings specifically in this episode. The first is how he handled things when Master Kengo left. We know he falsely blamed Kengo for the death of his daughter who died of starvation, in that they were in a period of great famine, and also his wife who took her own life after losing her daughter. He put these tragedies on Kengo's exit from the clan and sought after him for revenge. This is the most glaring example of Saito's lack of accountability. It may not have been his own fault that his wife and daughter died, but the strained relationship between himself and his sons from that tragedy was definitely his fault. Whatever failure his clan suffered was always someone else's fault and never his. This is how he could justify the massacre of an entire family, the family of his old best friend, hiding it under a need to punish deserters, which was another flaw of his leadership. True leadership is influencing people enough that they follow you willingly. According to Henry Cabot, in its highest form, leadership consists of getting people to work for you when they are under no obligation to do so. Therefore, you lose leadership when you cease to lead. The people who are led by you should follow you willingly. Instead, Saito used intimidation and fear to keep his people loyal to him. The threat of severe and mortal punishment for people who choose to leave and people who disobey his orders, no matter how barbaric said orders are. Such loyalty is fickle and can be overcome by strong morality, exasperation, and even love, like when Mei and Ty Lee defied Azula in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Mei put it aptly.
You miscalculated. I love Zuko more than I fear you.
And Ty Lee loved Mei enough to defy Azula as well. The Kitsune refused to let Saito murder a child, despite the threat of great bodily harm and death. If it is the choice of your subjects to follow you, only then will you know who truly wants to be a part of what you are building. Next, true leaders put others ahead of their own agenda. Imagine if Saito actually cared about the snake, the Oni, the Kitsune, and his sons, the spider and the dragon, as actual human beings and not just a part of his machine that he could do whatever he wanted with. Imagine if when Kengo left, Saito wished him well and left his family to be, keeping in touch with his old friend even as he built his empire. Now, I do recognize that Saito was also a victim of the model of leadership and government of his time, but the lessons are there regardless, and learning from them is exactly why history should be studied. Saito lacked accountability and compassion for his subjects. He saw them as tools to keep around only when they are useful to his agenda. He cared not for their convictions or independent thoughts and would gladly bring hell upon anyone that stepped a hair out of line, even his own sons. While the model of leadership and punishment differs from what we have in our society today, the principles apply all the same, and the Bible contains numerous examples of good and praiseworthy leadership that should be emulated, from Abraham to Jacob to Joseph to Moses and to David. Leaders of wisdom, Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verses 11 to 12. Wisdom is good with an inheritance and profitable to those who see the sun. For wisdom is a defense as money is a defense, but the excellence of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those who have it. Leaders of integrity and skill, Psalm 78 verse 72. So he shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands. Leaders of righteousness, Ephesians 6 verse 14. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness. In 1 Timothy 3, we see more attributes of leaders. It was written as a guideline for the selection of deacons in the early church, but the principles hold true for any leadership position, especially as Christians. Above reproach, temperate, self-controlled, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent but gentle, not a lover of money, faithful to their spouse, and able to manage their own homes. May we be filled with the Holy Spirit and accept His teachings on how to be good, godly leaders, from our own homes to the greatest leadership positions we are entrusted with. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye for now, and may the Lord be with you.